Why is it difficult to accept that some marriages just aren't meant to last forever? And why is divorce seen as a mark of shame and failure for so many women instead of a rebirth? Let's talk about the D word on Raw with Rasha. My guest is Nina Shah Dhruv, a mother who's been divorced for 11 years. She's also a successful career woman in the healthcare industry. And Nina, we have known each other for so many years. We've both been through divorces and through our own journeys.
Yes, we have.
But it's great to see you, and it's great to have you here.
It's great to see you too. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for sharing your journey. So now, how many years were you married for?
About 10 and a half years.
Okay. And what was that moment like for you when you just realized that this marriage isn't working out for me anymore? Did something happen? Was there a trigger point? When did you know? How did you know?
There were quite a few trigger points, obviously, between me and my ex. And it's devastating to know that you're going to have to change who you are, your identity that you had been for so long. So transitions, lots of transitions.
But what was that moment like when you realized that I can't do this anymore? Because, you know, a lot of times we'll think, oh, let's just keep working on it. Maybe we'll go to therapy or I'll just handle this. But there comes that moment when you just know that this isn't working out anymore. What was that moment like for you? What did you feel?
Loss, a lot of change and loss, and redefining for my family, for my daughter, mainly. You know, what is her life going to look like now? So a lot of hurt and pain.
Was there fear at any point of how you're going to go on? Because you used to have a business also with your ex-husband.
Yes. No fear, more just like, how am I going to transition and face the challenges that come with going through a divorce?
Did you ever feel resentful that you weren't able to commit to this perfect ever after?
I definitely think that you go through moments where you feel like you failed. So that probably would be my word to use, because your vision of what your future is and what it's going to be change. And that coming to terms with that takes a while.
Can you tell us about a moment when you did feel that, oh, I have failed in what I had set to do? Could you walk us through that or paint a picture for us?
I'm a pretty resilient person. So for me, my source is just find out, not to isolate myself, find other people who have gone through same or similar things so I can talk about it. I went to therapy. I ran a lot. So I did a lot of exercise therapy. I lost like 25 pounds in like a month. And I think all those things combined, and reading a lot of literature, like educating myself on how other people coped or what they did or what I could use in my situation, because everybody's situation is very different, helped a lot in the journey and going onwards. The grounding part for me obviously was my daughter, because there's the biggest purpose. I have to figure it out. I have to move forward one step at a time, one day at a time. And then getting that support from my family, probably just the unconditional love. We are there for you. We support whatever you're in a battle that you're going to have to go through here, and the transitions, and just being there, probably.
So there wasn't a moment where they said, why is this happening? Or can you just please push through it and make it work? And I ask this because there's a lot of pressure, especially in the South Asian community, for that. So did you ever receive that kind of pressure at all?
Of course. I would say probably throughout the last couple of years, we definitely, I mean, he did himself to my ex, and I both probably received that from our families. And we took that in stride, because he and I are in really good terms now. We co-parent our daughter really well. Just had to throw that part a little bit out. I would say that our parents, of course, everybody wants you to figure it out and be successful in that marriage. But then they come to terms at some point or another that maybe this is not the right thing or the right path for both of you. So then they have to turn around and support that too. But that takes a while. And my parents definitely said that multiple times. Can't you guys figure it out? Or, work through it. You have your daughter, everything. Absolutely.
Let's talk about your daughter, because I know for many families, that is an issue of concern. And that's the first thing parents look out for, right?
Sure.
But I feel that sometimes if you're in a toxic marriage, it's better to have that separation because that's what the children are seeing. So, how did that play in your life?
I just think my daughter's the light of my life. So I think that kept us both grounded at the end of the day. Like you want to figure it out for your child. You want to be better. You want to do better. You want to get through the toxic moments and put them behind you so you're a better parent at the end of the day. So I think it's more grounding, if anything, with a child involved.
Any shame or guilt in that process of deciding that, okay, this is not working out?
Absolutely. I would say guilt, a lot of guilt, always a lot of guilt, because I was brought up in a nuclear family with parents, and my mom and dad, they're still married. And I would say definitely the guilt of not providing that for my child. A lot of it.
How did you feel?
I would just, I still feel it occasionally that, like, gosh, I wanted that for her, or, but then you kind of look at the bright side is that just go through the motions of feeling the guilt, and then you have to like look at the glass is half full, not empty. So I tend to turn it around and just go, okay, look, she's very lucky. She has both sides of the family pretty close, both sets of grandparents around. She has parents that are both invested and vested in her life and co-parent and are friendly. She has uncles and aunts and lots of cousins that love her. And I think we figured it out on how to make it all work. It took a while, though.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure it did. I mean, I don't think any of this happens.
Nothing comes overnight.
Yeah. Definitely not.
Raw with Rasha will be back in a moment.
Let's talk about the lo kya kahenge syndrome, or the what are the people going to say. That is a huge syndrome that we have in the community.
Definitely in our Indian community.
Yes. How did that affect any of your decisions, and did that impact you in any way?
I think initially it definitely did, because both my ex and I are both Gujarati Indian descent, and our families.
And you were very involved in the community.
Yes, we were both very involved in the communities, and our parents were very social too, or are social. So I think for me, I can only speak for myself. For me personally, the first 3 years, probably outside of my divorce, I was not comfortable in the Indian society at all. I just felt like there was going to be a lot of gossip. I felt like people talking behind my back.
Did you feel that way, or was that happening?
Definitely a combination of both. My own internal feelings and vulnerability at that time, and then I know it was happening because I would get feedback from other people.
What kind of feedback were you getting?
I would get, oh, this auntie said that, or this auntie's like, oh, I can't believe, or friends would say, other friends, acquaintances would say, oh my God, I can't believe it's them, and what happened, and just like a lot of questioning and gossip. And
that's so interesting, because I went through a similar process where people would just wonder, like, well, what happened? And everybody just wants to know.
Right.
Everybody wants to know the gossip. And I'm looking at it from the support section. Like, how can people be of support to someone who's going through a divorce? Did that ever come up for you too? Like, you just looking for support? Because I just wanted someone to ask me, how are you doing? That's all I ever needed.
Absolutely.
Yet people just seem to disappear or not. I don't know if it was awkward for them. What was your experience like that in looking for support?
I think definitely in our community, they don't really know how to give that type of support for a divorce or a divorced person, or they kind of like just back off. It's a lot of talk. Instead of a lot of, hey, how are you doing? Or can I, what do you need? Or things like that. So I would say that definitely happened a lot. I would say I was going to a Garba, an Indian dance. And I was really questioning, should I go? I don't know if I want to go, but, I want to take my daughter and keep her involved in her Indian community and culture. And one of my girlfriends said, "Oh yeah, I'll meet you there," and everything. And I remember being so insecure and feeling vulnerable and feeling like I just had a lot of eyes on me.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. And I don't know if that was particularly happening. I'm sure a little bit of it was, but it also was what I was going through internally. I was projecting. So I do realize that many years later now.
Did anybody come up and say anything to you?
No one really said anything directly to me, but I could see the look over. It was like that, those glances or the, I felt the treatment was a little bit different, definitely. But I remember one of my cousins said to me, and it stuck with me. She just said, "Get strong and then get out there. But you need to get strong first."
And how did you get strong?
Really looking at all my resources, everything, books, therapy, running, my child, my family, good friends, people that were there for me, all of it, knowing who your friends are, figuring that out.
It's almost like a rebirth in a way, isn't it? Do you feel like there's been a Nina rebirth since the divorce?
I just think I definitely have re-identified myself. So you have an identity when you're married and when you have extended family, et cetera, then you have a new identity, like you redefine yourself for the purposes of where you're at in your next chapter.
When someone's going through a divorce, there's so many different feelings. There are the feelings of guilt, shame, fear, failure, anxiety. Could you recall a moment where you felt like that, but then you were able to move through it?
I think when I moved from my home, I was very anxious. And I think it all comes down to redefining yourself. So the stronger you get and the more grounded you become with seeing yourself in a different place than you were, would probably be the place where I found my comfort zone again. And it took a while. Nothing comes overnight. To me, I would tell everybody there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Right. I think that's interesting you mentioned that, because I feel like that last moment when you leave a place that's known to you as home and you're no longer going to be coming to that place anymore, it's like, wow, I think it really hits you that my life is totally changing from this moment on. I know I felt that.
Yes.
And it felt really strange to me to think, oh, wow, I'm moving into a new place and this is going to be my new home after so many years.
Well, I thought I was going to grow old in that house. So for me, it meant I brought my daughter there. I had her there. We were there for many years. And I think that definitely hit home. That was like, wow, okay, now I'm really redefining my life.
More after this short break.
Did you ever feel selfish in the process too? You know, as women, we always just put everybody else first. And here you were having to make this life-changing decision.
I would definitely think I'm sure I felt selfish at moments, because you always look back and go, did I fight enough? Did I do this enough? Did I do that enough? You keep questioning that. And was I just in that moment, could I have done something different? So sure, there's moments I look back and say that, but you can't beat yourself up about it either. I would say that I found that later, after all the emotions and the things that you go through as women. We place so much on ourselves as it is. We do. I think we beat ourselves up too much. So looking back, I'm sure I had moments that I felt selfish over, did I not try hard enough for my daughter? Could I have done something different? But now looking forward, I don't feel that way anymore. I feel like you can't go backwards and keep beating yourself up. You have to take one step at a time and move forward.
You know, what were those moments like before the separation actually happened?
I wasn't really in reality. I didn't believe it was actually going to happen. So there was moments of definitely fear, because is this really happening? Was one of the questions I was asking myself. Another time when we did separate, and I was still in the house and he had moved out. I would say this one time, it was the first time that he actually had my daughter, like the day he had her all day. And then the first time she was separated from me in that sense, even though, of course, he would take her out before we had separated. And I was stuck in the Target parking lot and I could not stop crying and I couldn't drive myself home. And my 3 best friends had to come out and get me out of the Target parking lot. So there was a lot of days like that. I would say I probably cried 365 days and cried around the Rose Bowl because I lived out in San Marino. So I ran around the Rose Bowl and cried from letter to letter to letter. And it's kind of like a grieving process that you go through because nothing's easy when you feel that extreme loss.
It's a death. It's a death of a relationship.
Yes. And a lot of times people, like psychologists, have compared it to a death, that the feelings, the steps that you take after are very similar to a death.
But was there a moment that you ever asked yourself, why did this happen to me?
Of course. I mean, I think you can't get through many things that hurt you without saying, why me? But you're not human otherwise. But I definitely thought, why me, many times, but maybe that was just my path. At the end of the day, I think everybody has a different path, and maybe they'll find challenges or they're going through different challenges. And mine was this challenge.
Was there ever that fear in your mind of, I'm never going to find someone else again, or I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life?
No, never.
No, just confident that.
Yes. I never had that fear. I don't know why, but I never did.
Well, that's great.
I know.
A lot of people do. So I think that's great to have that kind of confidence.
I don't know where I got that from, but I just feel like there's somebody for everybody.
The healing is really, really important because whether it's a 1-year marriage, 2-year, or even 15 years, there's so much of this person that's been a part of you. What did you do to heal? I know you said there's resources, but like what specifically do you think helped you heal?
I think for me personally, it was forgiving everybody who wasn't as nice as they could be. So I don't place that judgment on anybody anymore either, because they may have not known how to be or react or act at the moment. So
was there a specific situation that you could share with us where someone wasn't nice to you or said something that really hurt you?
I would say probably extended members of families.
Like what kind of comments?
I would just say probably how they reacted or acted, not necessarily commentary to my face, probably the separation of not being included, more ostracized, feeling that you weren't.
So they didn't invite you to things anymore?
Yes, I think that was definitely part of it, like maybe feeling ostracized. And then I realized I don't need to be invited to everything. I don't need to be involved in everything. I don't want to be. I'm okay. And forgiving them for how they behaved at the time, because maybe they didn't know. So I don't carry that resentment with me at all anymore. So that was my biggest healing.
So do you think we should start accepting that some marriages just aren't meant to last forever, till death do us part?
Yes. I don't think we have a choice. I just think that's reality, unfortunately.
I mean, I don't think we get into marriages thinking, oh, I'm going to get divorced. But
no one does.
I think to stick it out, just even if it's toxic and unhealthy for 2 people, I think many people are conditioned to do that.
I just think that's reality. Unfortunately, not everybody is supposed to be married forever, and not everybody will be married, even if regardless. So as a society in general, we just need to start accepting it and seeing how we can move forward and be progressive as a society, especially with our Indian communities too.
So how do you feel life has opened up for you after your divorce?
I just feel like it's great. I am lucky that I don't see the world with rose-colored glasses. I'm definitely more realistic. I know who my friends are. I know I can count on people and they can count on me. I just feel I got a lot of benefits from it, as well as I just look at the positives instead of the negatives. I've forgiven, I don't forget. I look at there's lots of opportunities if you want to go out and get them. I don't think like there's the world is your oyster kind of thing. I just feel like it doesn't have to be the only thing that defines you.
What was the process like when you started dating again? I mean, was there any self-judgment?
I think I was too emotional in the process to actually think of judgment.
What do you mean too emotional?
Like I was still too emotionally involved in thinking about my reeling from the divorce or going through the motions of divorce. And when I started dating, and I just dated actually to take my mind off of what I was going through.
Oh, okay. So you didn't wait for a span of time and then start dating
No.
again.
I dated.
So you didn't heal and then start dating again.
Absolutely not. I had no business dating, and I was dating.
Expand on that.
So I started dating probably within 6 months of separating. And it was just more of a, like hanging out with a friend who had already gone through a divorce too, who was Indian as well. And it was more just hanging out, and then it became a dating thing. So it was definitely a little therapeutic for me because I would get that support, but I was also dating. And I wouldn't date a lot, meaning maybe once a week or so, because I had a young daughter at home. And it was just to get out, get away from the emotions that I was dealing with. But I was definitely not ready for a relationship at that point.
But did you feel any time that, I have this divorce mark on me now as I'm going out into the dating world?
I didn't think of it at that junction quite yet. I did years later, because I feel like these things pop up sometimes from talking to other people right away. And for other people, for me, I was too raw with my emotions at that point to actually even think the community, et cetera. I needed to get away. I needed to get out, find somebody else who had already gone through a divorce. It was more of a need-based instead of what is everybody going to think. I just kept it on the down low. I didn't tell anybody except family members knew, but it was just to get out, really.
And when you moved past the getting out part, then what was it like for you?
I think then it was kind of like, because I was the only one in the family that married an Indian person. So then I was like, I kind of felt a lot of pressure for that again, but then I was completely opposed to dating another Indian guy. And I was like, no, I don't think I want that again.
Why is that?
Because I was like, maybe I need to try something different, That didn't work. So, and my brother and sister are married to non-Indian people, and they're still married and happy.
That's a whole nother show, Nina.
Yes, it is. So I just felt like, just keep the doors open, and then I started dating that way. I just feel like good in where I'm at, in a good place.
That's a good feeling.
Yes, absolutely. Worked hard for it, though.
Yeah, I think it's important to know that, again, this isn't an overnight process.
No, not at all.
It
And
takes
everybody's
time.
journey is different.
Right. What does someone do in that moment of despair? Because now we're talking years since the divorce, right? So,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah,
again,
it's been a while.
as we've mentioned, this doesn't happen overnight.
No.
We all go through the process of it, but someone is really feeling low, they're unsure. What piece of advice would you give them?
I would tell them, look at all the resources. Don't be scared to go get help or ask for help. Don't isolate yourself. Know that there's a lot of people out there and you're not alone. And it's one day at a time, maybe a month at a time, 6 months at a time, a year, and take care of yourself. Don't worry so much what everybody else thinks. I heard this quote a long time ago, and I don't even recall who said it, but somebody said, don't worry about what everybody else thinks. You'll realize later that they don't think about you as often as you think they think about you.
Oh, that's a great piece.
I know.
I think we worry so much about how we're being judged or how we're being looked at. Nina, divorce can often be a very difficult thing to talk about. So thank you for sharing your journey with us.
Thank you so much for having me. And everybody's journey is different, and if someone was able to get some help from anything I've said, I'm grateful.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you all for watching another episode of Raw with Rasha.